All right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to SEO Fight Club. Let me say hello in the YouTube chat. Be sure to ask questions and suggest topics, and we will try to get to as many as we can. I'm going to pop out this chat so I can keep an eye on it. And one of the interesting stories, well, not really, everybody's burned out of it and tired of it, it's all get. But one of the interesting polls is this: what do you think is better, GPT or Bard? And it's 70-30-ish in favor of GPT, which I don't think most people would argue with. The interesting thing about that is it really kind of smacks of the early evangelist vibe that Google had when they first hit the scene. And so now we're seeing a similar early evangelist vibe for GPT. And so I just like to point out the similarity because I know a lot of people weren't around when Google, hit the scene. They were too young. But, the vibe feels the same. And so it's eerily spooky in that regard that, change is coming. And so seeing the numbers swing so fiercely like that, it was kind of the same way. There are still holdouts saying, Alta Vista is still my favorite, Excite, Hotbot, Lycos. Well, nobody was saying Lycos, but there were some holdouts for Yahoo. There were some holdouts for MSN and AOL and CompuServe. But the numbers all kind of, felt this swingy, and the climate and buzz around it felt this buzzy. And so there's a lot of similarities in the feeling that this change has. And so I just want to point out how eerily spooky it is to me to Google's own launch and how early evangelists are behaving. And the thing about early evangelists, all those evangelists that went and told their grandparents, hey, you ought to use Google because not only is it a better solution, it also helps my business. The only thing they're missing is it also helps my business piece. And so the second Bing figures out how to drive that home, that's when the evangelism goes off the rails and market share starts swaying. The second people can say, wow, this really helped my coffee shop. Wow, this really helped my restaurant. That's a big deal. And so if they can connect that last dot, that's the only thing holding them back, is delivering value to these small businesses who will then evangelize to no end. And so it's kind of the mega viral that they're looking for. And they've already had a mega viral, but they haven't brought it home with the technical evangelists who will go to see their grandparents at the old folks' home, set up the old folks' home computer to do it, and leave a little instruction sheet taped to the wall next to it. If you need help figuring out how to do something, click this link and ask this question. We're just one step short of that kind of evangelism in our industry. And man, if they connect those dots, that's a big deal. And I'd imagine Google's pretty scared. I bet the overall impact on their market share is probably a small amount. They aren't worried financially, they're worried conceptually about the possibility. But I would imagine in certain markets, like software engineers. Like the amount of Google searches of people trying to look stuff up on Stack Overflow, like evaporated. And the amount of people who went to GPT saying, how can I rewrite from this library to that library, went through the moon. And so anywhere there are touch points like that in GPT, Google's probably seeing massive losses. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting time to be alive. Something is definitely happening. What do you think, Clint? You're the most skeptical.
Well, you kind of jumped around there from comparing the two to you threw Bing in there, and then you're like Alta Vista, and half the people like who are half our age are like, what the hell's an Alta Vista? I mean,
Yeah, I know I'm all over, but I'm talking about a vibe.
Yeah. So my feeling on chat OpenAI versus Google is Google significantly dropped the ball in the development of their generative AI.
We knew
They
that was
didn't allow users access because we're all dumb monkeys and we're never going to use it right. So how dare we give the little people access is kind of the thought behind that whole team over there. And then the result of that is OpenAI. They created a generative AI with a sense of responsibility, I think, and then gave it to everybody to teach it to make it that much better. And then Google kind of came on under the umbrella of all these, as you say, evangelists who thought, oh, Google scans the internet every day. They're going to teach it based off of all that data that they get, and it's going to be the greatest AI ever. And then it came out, and it was a big ass turd. And I think they're going to be dealing with that being the turd, and they'll try to polish that turd up a little bit, but it's still going to be a turd for a few years because they're just behind on the dev work that OpenAI did. And then Microsoft was smart. Why reinvent the wheel? We'll just buy the wheel or invest in the wheel and help you put some chrome plating on it, and integrate it with our tools. And I don't think that they're trying to have a chat GBT tool inside of Bing. I think they're just trying to augment the search and stuff. And once they figure out how to monetize that, that'll help them and help business owners in a marketing perspective. Bing is going to take over, in my opinion, from Google, especially if Bing uses the chat GBT interface to help teach the algorithm to provide better results. That's going to be dope, I think. And then in regards to helping businesses, Microsoft has the advantage of everyone who uses all those tools are implementing ChatGPT in the Office, and they have it in now Bing, and they have it in Skype, and they got all these new touch points now, and they're using Chromium to deliver it, which is essentially the same as Google Chrome. It's just Chromium, and so I think that they're in a really good position compared to Google right now. Is Google scared? I don't know that they're scared, but they certainly have to look in the mirror or look around that campus, get those people off of the slides and their fucking juice bars and have them working, because they definitely dropped the ball in regards to AI.
Yeah, and I think one of the things going on with them is not that they, it's not so much that they were, misleading. I think they were providing cover, like they realized they were behind and they had a number of significant shortfalls. And so they used the argument of we need to make AI safe because AI is dangerous. We need to make it safe for everyone. But I think that was just political speak for we're behind and we need to buy time to catch up. And they couldn't catch up enough in the time they had to try.
It's kind of, I don't know if it's human nature or what, but it's our default fallback. We're not ready for it, so ergo it's going to destroy you and create zombies. I mean, it happened with COVID, the vaccine. Everyone was going to die and get heart attacks, and we were all going to turn into zombies, or give our child ADHD or whatever. So they scare you with that, or they scare you with politics, they scare you with racism, and with AI they're just like, oh, this is scary, it's gonna take over the world. It's generative AI, people. It's a fucking autocomplete system on steroids. That's what it is. It was taught with a whole bunch of words and corpus, and human knowledge was fed into this machine, and it said, hey, replicate that and use it as an autocomplete system. That's what it is. It's not, I mean, there's no walking robots and stuff like that. That'd be really cool. I would be able to work out a little bit more and not have to be outside working on the trees when we get robots. That'll be awesome. I look forward to that. But right now we're not there. So I'm down with the freer shit.
Yeah, the places where you have to be careful with it are slander and false accusation. And some of those can come about in interesting ways.
Well, I think you gotta be careful of that regardless.
Yeah. But if you're not reading,
AI is gonna have you out, violating everyone's copyright. AI is gonna have you, doing all this stuff. I mean,
it's more subtle than that. Like even with my own business, like when I ask the AIs about my business, even GPT hallucinates and says that I offer free SEO tools. And it's like, that's not even on.
Well, that's because, again, on those points, it's a generative AI system. It's artificial generative intelligence. It's making shit up. It's not researching. It's got this corpus of information, and if it doesn't have the exact common accepted answer, it is going to make shit up.
But you could potentially generate something that would cause a civil liability if you posted it and it got lots of visibility.
You didn't analyze it and review it. That's where the human review comes in.
Yep. And so that's all I'm saying is you got to be careful that you're not creating, liabilities by posting stuff you're not even looking at.
I went it just a little bit different way when you said, the poll was out there and it's 70-30. I want to know who the 30 are.
Yeah, I did too.
Because I looked at it, and so I can see it actually being 30 based on what I see out there, because almost everybody that's had access to Bard and played with ChatGPT said, Bard's a turd. It's basically a unanimous thing. And that's what happens when you drop the ball and have to rush something out there to say, hey, well, look, we got AI too. But the other argument that I've seen people make, in favor of Bard are the people that said, do you understand how much information Google has access to? I'm like, yes. Have you seen the output? Do you understand how technically, superior the technology behind it is? I'm like, yes, it could be superior, but right now what I see is the output, which is a turd. Yeah. So at some point, down the road, it could blow everybody away, but today it's a turd. And that's what we're evaluating today. The other thing, just to piggyback on something that Clint said, it's not just that Microsoft is trying to figure out how to integrate it into search. They are now offering integrations with just tons and tons of tools. They're going to grab market share in a hurry because their tool works. And today, everybody wants to be, part of that. Everybody wants to integrate with that. And so by the time you have your tentacles out there and all of these different companies and processes and things like that, Bard, even if superior, is going to have work to overcome, the entrenched market share.
Whoa, wait a second, Lee. You mean to tell me you don't want to wait for safety?
No, I'm not. I'm unsafe. Those of you testing, no, I'm unsafe.
There you go, Google. If you're watching, making the world wait for safety, even if it's just a cover story, is a very bad cover story. Yeah, it would be better to say we're trying to maximize the firepower. That's a better cover story than we're going to make you wait for safety.
Well, that's right. Large language models, all of them are word prediction engines. That's all they are. And what they're outputting is a reflection of the corpus. So if it doesn't have information, it's going to predict what might be plausible, and it's going to be wrong. And then if it does have information, it could sit there and say, that Ted Kabida's hobbies include, cherry picking and, mud wrestling. It's like, Ted, I didn't know you were mud
One and
wrestling.
two.
I understand. So, it could be right about one of those things and wrong about another. The problem is that what it's outputting is a reflection of us, and people think that AI is some super intelligence that's understanding truth and falsehood and then recreating information that is there. So when it doesn't, it violates a presumption, really, that is untrue. It's a reflection of us. So when you see, like, I love some of these stories that come out and I watch, where if you start to feed it prompts about certain things, it starts to become insecure and will respond as though it were insecure.
I got that same thing. It started having doubt about itself. Bard did. It got a math problem wrong. I let it know that it got the answer wrong. And then I asked it if Bard and ChatGPT and 3 other AIs got into a contest, who would win? And it had self-doubt.
Right, because it's reflecting, self-doubt in this as part of one of the contextual things from which it takes clues. So if it gets it wrong, it's like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. I'm just not good at math. I've never been good at math. I probably won't get a good job. I'll never graduate. It's like, it's just a reflection of the documents that feed it.
Women are oppressed, black people, white people are racist, you're all horrible people. And then AI learns that. It's all.
It's that, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's all crazy.
Yeah, it's not a fact checker. Gary Isles actually at PubCon, had addressed that. He said, we don't want to be in the fact checking business, because what the hell's a fact? It's a lot of stuff out there is opinion. Yeah. And so, it's not a fact. So whose opinion is the correct one? You don't want to be in the policing business.
Yet they're known for their culture of penalties.
Yes.
So it's a bit hypocritical at that point.
Yes,
I think in that regards, though, what Gary is saying is right. They don't want to be fact checkers, but if they have to protect, from a political standpoint, they got to protect the ability to not be sued over user-generated content. And then when Congress and all those clowns went to all those tech companies and like, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you do something? We're going to take this away from you. The natural reaction for them was, all right, let's just go full on nuclear. And it just so happens that their base in the company is left leaning. So full on nuclear means anything that we think is super extreme. And we're probably going to, they'll be naturally the right leaning side, right? And then if it was the other way around, and if everyone in tech were a bunch of raging Republicans, all this liberal stuff would be the target. So it's, in their defense, I think that they kind of did the best that they could under the circumstances. Could they have done better? Oh, certainly. And that goes with teaching these AI things. Google could have done better. I think OpenAI could probably have done better too. But if you played around with it enough, you know that there's back doors around a lot of those safety settings. They're gone. They're there if you use the right prompts, that you can get rid of those. And I think that's probably the best way to handle this whole companies should be policing the internet craze that's going on right now. Personally, I don't want Google filtering the information that I get access to. I don't want governments doing it. I certainly don't want Google doing it, and I don't want Left Larry doing it either. So,
well, the problem is that if you look at just leaving it open, using the internet as sort of open source content, there's bias inherent in that. And if you try to implement rules there's bias inherent in that. So, I mean, you're basically saying we're going to favor one type of bias over another type of bias. And that, it's inherently problematic. I don't see where there is a good set of rules on that. Because, the internet is a wide open thing. It's global. I mean, anybody can put up anything. I could sit there and say, actually, Clint is, from a race of flying monkeys from Zoltar 7, and then all of a sudden it's out there. It's those kind of things you can't get around. So
promised you wouldn't tell.
Hey, you know what? The test was clean. The blood test came back. But anyway,
well,
go ahead.
I believe in free speech, and I really love the idea about the internet that freedom is everywhere online. And so the fundamental premise of that is really what we as a nation should be falling back to. And we have legislators. So if something is causing a problem, then you talk to your government and you get voters to rally and you elect people to make laws to fix the problems. But all this, let's put someone in the middle to be a judge of what is allowed to be said and what's not. That is not okay, because there's no representation in that. We can't elect better judges into those positions.
They're using the corporate pressure to circumvent essentially the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. And when I say there, I mean everybody, whether you're right, left, middle, whatever. If you are going and expecting Facebooks and Twitters and the Googles to police other people's content, especially other people's content that you just blatantly disagree with, and say that should not be there, you're just trying to use those companies to circumvent the First Amendment.
Yeah, and that's
the way I think. Now, the First Amendment doesn't apply to a company. A company can do whatever the hell they want, but if they want to engage the largest mass of populace, they gotta be free and open to all ideas.
And right? If you have a monopoly in your industry, that needs to be weighed as well.
Yeah. And so these guys, I mean, again, I think they're just in a really shitty position, and their execution was kind of as we expected it to be because of the political leanings of the primary, the worker base of these companies. We kind of expected that. Could it be better? Sure. But I think we'll see that reflected in AI. I know we got off on a tangent here. We're not even talking about SEO anymore. But in regards to, like, you were talking about how it got its self-conscious, and it became self-conscious and then started giving you those answers. I mean, it's a good example of, it was taught a way to respond to those questions, or it saw how the data set was responding to those questions, and it was like, all right, I guess I'm going to be woe is me too, because everyone else, all this data says woe is me.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some SEO here. We got a few questions in the hopper. When evaluating the top ranking pages in search, what are the signs the page is ranking due to engagement factors? Well, it'll be volatile with traffic if there's a direct correlation. So as your traffic goes up, your rankings go up, and when your traffic goes down, your rankings go down. So whether that's hourly or monthly, there should be some correlation where the two variables move together. So that's what I'd look for. I'd get the data out of your logs, and I'd chart them both on the same graph and see if they go up and down at the same time. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, most of the testing that I've done in that particular space has shown that engagement is not much. It can be a little bit local. It's certainly not in the national. There's a lot of theories and a lot of even courses out there that are taught on this sort of stuff, and ultimately it doesn't move the needle much. So
I would, listening to the question, right? So Ted's absolutely right. If it's your website, look in your search console, see if you're bouncing around. That's indicative that Google's testing you. All right. And then if you're looking at all of the top rated pages, you probably need a tool like, I don't know, Quora Script, if that ever came out. Imagine a tool that ran Quora by itself, and then it runs like, I don't know, maybe a volatility report, and you have it set to do it like over the course of a day, every hour, and then look at that. And then maybe you could probably see similar testing across all the top ranking pages. But yeah, you'd need a tool like Quora Script or something like that to pull that off.
that's just crazy. That would be awesome.
I think Clint is dropping hints.
Thank you, Tanya.
All right. All right. So now the pressure's on. I'm back onto the oven. Let's see. Do you have an internal linking taxonomy strategy for blog content? Why, yes, I do. I like little widgets that suggest things, and the more different kinds of little widgets you can muster, kind of the better it works. So you can have a widget in your sidebar for popular posts. You can have a widget in your sidebar for related posts. You could have a widget in your sidebar for maybe thematic posts that are, related by a different dimension. People also liked widget. So if you like this article, you'll probably like these other ones. And it's the same way as upselling in e-com. And the cool thing is about those widgets is you put 2 or 3 into your ecosystem, and it kind of does 80% of the siloing you need. And it adds, depending upon how you configure them, it can add quite a bit of content. So if you have control to say suggest 100 things instead of suggest 3 things, now you're adding 100 sentences that are keyword rich to your page. And man, I love those things. What do you think, Clint?
I would go kind of the word lift model. And so WordLift is a WordLift IO, I think is the domain name is what you're looking for, but they have a thing, and they were the first to do it, where they created this glossary based off the entities that you're using. And so the taxonomies in this, in how I would do it, would be using the tags to duplicate that model. And then, speaking of AI, you can use AI to create your glossary and link to those tag pages. And you if you're in a niche, in particular sites should probably remain like in a niche unless you're a niche site, you're going to have this steady use of this entity in multiple places. So you can just kind of leverage that, or leverage an internal linking tool that ties that particular word to that tag, and then it bounces around. And then if you're using WordPress, all the posts that are talking about that subject are all get listed, and now you have this instant internal linking thing going on. And you never have a what is that, orphan page. There's a guy in Mastermind. His name is Dimitri. I don't know his last name. He hides it on Skype, but he's really smart. He actually found the plugin. So if you can look for this, and it's a plugin that creates a glossary for you, like WordLift would, but you did on your own, and then it has little light boxes that pop up over the text that have the definition of that entity too. So that's another way to handle it. So I would just say that it's probably that linking strategy is open totally to your imagination. There is no one right way. Do the one way that you're going to do it and maintain it.
Yeah, the last thing you said is where I would go. There's no one right way to do this. I mean, there's some wrong ways to do it, but the right ways are, just link relevant shit together in any way that you're going to keep doing it using whatever plugin you're comfortable with.
Yeah. If you're a link whisper person, go use that. If you're like do it all, and you can find a plugin that replaces the key, that takes the key, any use to that keyword, and creates a link. Or if you want to be methodical and build silos and make sure that there's nothing linking out of the silo and stuff, then do that. I mean, again, it's how you feel comfortable with it, how you learn it, and then the value of your domain. It's at some point those internal links aren't going to, or will stop helping you. So minimal viable SEO, figure out where that point is, and then you don't have to do any more work after that. So.
All right. So what are the common reasons that websites get destroyed after core updates? You want to take a crack at that, Lee?
Depends on what the core update is addressing. I'm going to steal from Gary Iles on. He talked about PubCon. The way he explained core updates is that Google has changed its opinion about what's important in search. So the way I interpret that is they have certain factors that they're weighting more heavily or less heavily than before. And, usually what happens is a couple of weeks after a core update is done, you can run a core report, do a core diff, see what factors have moved up, see what factors have moved down. And typically you find that you are in deficit for the stuff that has moved up and perhaps overinvested in the things that have moved down. That would be my, the take on that in general, is that you've run afoul of something now that Google thinks is important, and you need to identify it and incorporate it into your site.
And we have definitely seen a trend over the years that if you fix your factor deficits, you tend to weather the updates well. Like you don't shake, because I think there's some real truth to what Lee has said, where if Google decides that exact match is more important and backlinks are less important, and you add a ton of backlinks and not a lot of exact match, you see volatility. And conversely, same way, if you were allocated the other way, then you shoot up. Whether it's sharp up or sharp down, sharp movement is the hazard. And fixing your deficits helps you call your shot and ride through it without any sharp movement. And so ever since I've been using Quora, style tuning, I've always been pretty even keel through the updates. Like, I'm almost never one of the people saying I've lost everything. I get hit on a page, and right now, out of all my sites, I have one page that was hit, and we have theories about it. But it's also one of those things where you kind of have to go slow on the things that get hit, because Google can do rollbacks where they just, we're using data from 2 months ago now. And so if your page was relatively new, then you're seeing something from the before time, and Google has to reprocess it for it to get back to where it was, and that might be 6 weeks from now. So sometimes the right thing to do is to wait, and it's really frustrating and hard to know. And on that one page I was hit with, I'm in the frustrating, let's wait kind of mode.
You had a tool that would analyze 2 reports from Quora, and
here comes Clint.
Output and
drop it, please. Yes, I'm working on it, Clint. But you don't need those tools to do that analysis. You can usually pick out the big movers and shakers just eyeballing a report before and a report after, going, hey, these ones have been there for months and they're no longer important. That's an easy change to spot. But yeah, oftentimes you need to wait to see if it doesn't just come back, because if Google's rescoring pages, that's going to take forever. That's going to take weeks for Google to rescore everything. And so if you're caught up in that, then you really just want to wait instead of react. But the question is, well, what if the rules have changed and I need to react instead of wait? And then it gets harder. But I think time will tell you, if 6 weeks go by and nothing's changed, then yeah, we probably got to change something on our end. And destroying the whole website is an interesting characteristic. Like when I get hit by these types of things, I'll see my rankings go down, but I'm still indexed. There's no manual actions. I have many sites doing similar strategies and none of them were hit. The only characteristic about the site of mine that was hit was that it was the youngest site I had. And so that's kind of making me feel good about the rollback theory and Google's rescoring things post rollback. Because that would explain it all in my case. And I have heard a few more accounts of people in similar situations. So I'm no longer leaning as heavily towards, it was my site only hit in my instance. It now feels like multiple people are seeing the same thing. Can you recover immediately after making changes when an update rollout is finished? No, because Google plays word games with the rollout is complete. Back when we were monitoring update volatility, we would see Google declaring it over while there was still massive amounts of like data processing volatility happening for weeks after they declared the update over. So just because Google declares it over doesn't mean that the event is done. And like we commonly tell people, the worst time to begin repairs on your building is while the earthquake is still happening. So I
think it's hard though, because we say that, right? And then we say, oh, but it could go on for weeks. And there isn't a client, or I don't know, even me, that's going to wait fucking for weeks for
well, unless
let's just sit on this for weeks, you know what I mean? So it's hard to
don't control
that as advice, right?
Yeah, like, but we don't control Google like you have.
No, I get that. So there's always a change. There's always a period of time when I think, 2-3 weeks for an update. Essentially, it's released. 2-3 weeks of searching, all this reprocessing, it kicks in. And I think you've gotten to the 75 to 90% range of that update being rolled out. You can start making decisions on that. If you're waiting longer than that, I mean, if it's your own property and you just you have a whole bunch of them, and you can walk away from one for a couple, weeks, what I would define as weeks, like a month, you know what I mean? Then and wait for everything to settle out. I think by the time you do that, there's already another update coming.
Well,
there's always another significant change. So
there's only 2 or 3 core updates in a year typically, and the smallest one we ever measured was 4 weeks, and the largest one we ever measured was 8 weeks.
Yeah, I'm not.
And so at 3 weeks, you're being optimistic that it's one of the smallest ones we've ever measured.
Yeah, no client is going to let you wait 8 weeks to start making changes.
You don't get a choice in what Google does,
especially if you get hit.
I mean, I realize that no client's going to wait, but you also have a reality of what Google does.
Well, you're saying don't respond to it until it's done, and then it could wait up to 8 weeks. And I'm telling you that is bad advice, because if a client, someone who's paying you money to rank, and you're like, I just can't do anything for 8 weeks because Google updated, I want to wait for them to finish.
Well, I didn't say don't do anything for 8 weeks. You can work on new content. You can work on areas that don't have anything to lose because you haven't tuned them yet. You just don't need to break something that historically was a number 1. Now you're going to go in and retune it when waiting might have fixed it. You can work in other areas while you diagnostically wait on that one. there's no reason to stop working, but there are reasons to wait and see.
So let me just say, this is the enjoyable thing about Fight Club. What we have is two different positions on, things that you can or would, should, or shouldn't do during an update. I think I can safely assume that neither of you has fully and completely tested data to show that one works and the other doesn't.
No, there's multiple.
If you're a listener out there, I mean, it's a good thing to listen to both of those, and then you're just going to have to make judgments about what you can do based on your unique situation. There isn't a clear, correct answer.
Agreed.
That's true. All right, let's look at another one. Will ChatGPT remove a large part of the content aspect of SEO? No, the content aspect will change because all of that artfully crafted quality content is vacuous of useful information, and AIs want facts. And so you need to go back and put information payload into your artfully crafted quality content, because if it doesn't answer the questions, it won't come up in the prompts. And so you need to figure out the information that people are asking for and make sure that the page covers that information. And there's another thing that's going on. People are shooting themselves in the foot thinking they're clever right now, and it's going to turn out to be a big mistake. If you have bot blocking on your website, if you turned on the bot detection on Cloudflare and you're throwing 403s to bots, just keep in mind that that includes the common crawl, which is how most of these AI tools are getting the content to train their models. You are opting out of training, but keep in mind that your competitors' articles on why your product or service is bad and their product and service is good are being trained on, and those will come up in the prompts. So you have basically abdicated your marketing message to everyone but you by turning on those bot blocking capabilities. So keep in mind, if you turn those on without understanding why completely, you may want to rethink that, because there may come a point where it bites you in the ass. All right, thoughts on that?
I think he's asking more of everyone who's listened to me, I've never been write high quality content, put 30 or 40 blog posts on there, and all this sunshine and rainbows will light out of your ass. I mean, I've never been one of those folks, and my content pace is for a client is typically 4 articles a month. With AI, I could technically boost that up and match probably anybody with AI. I mean, in a day, I can make a 400-page website with the Python script I'm looking at right now. But I can't promote it. And because I can't promote it, it means I'm not building links to all 400 pages, which creates that great, I don't know, level playing field for Google, because my internal links are not going to be good. My external links are going to suck. Ergo, there's no indication to Google that it's even good content, so it's not going to index it. So I'm just kind of wasting my time. And I think that's probably what's going to happen with AI content. I'm really going to figure out great ways to just write content galore, and Google's going to have to figure out a way to go, all right, we need to double down on what this idea of helpful content is, and the best way to do that is going to be backlinks. So if it won't change your SEO if you're already building external links as a matter of course of promotion of each piece of content and making sure your internal links are good. But at some point, you're going to run into a scale issue, and then you're going to trip over yourself with the helpful content update and just kind of devalue your entire site, because you have all these pages that don't have any backlinks and there's no value. They're not helpful in that regards, and so Google will just downplay you. So I think that's where Chat GPT or any of those AI tools before or after Chat GPT will have created a issue for Google on there's just so much information. I mean, we were looking at a couple of search results and it's just dumb. 6 billion, 5 billion. I mean, it's just dumb. And Google's got to go, all right, we got to cut this off somewhere. So how are we going to do that? And I think the indexing stuff, I mean, if you're having problems with indexing, then you probably have content issues and then you have, I would argue, if you have a pattern of creating a whole bunch of content and it gets indexed, but it never gets backlinks, internal and external, eventually they're just going to stop indexing your stuff anyway. Why bother indexing it at all? I would think. Right. So I think that's where all that AI stuff, you can get yourself in trouble pretty quick if you go crazy with it.
Good answer. All right, next one. I want to build PBN sites. What are the pages I must have and what site architect should I use? My advice to you would be to not do that, but instead to go subscribe to a PBN and see if it works for you. Because the engineering hurdles of building a PBM properly are going to take you hundreds, if not thousands of hours. It'll probably take you several years to really learn what you're doing properly and to get it dialed in and scaled up. And for a few $100, you can test out if it actually works for you. And so there is a short, quick, easy path to see, how people do it and will it work. And I would recommend that you try it in a safe place. Don't use it on your number one client. Find a website you don't give a shit about and see if you can make it rank. What do you think, Clint?
I think, and assuming you've already done all of that, I would go terms of service, about me, privacy policy, and contact us and homepage. And then the rest of that is depending on where you're getting your domains, rebuilding old content or having a plan to create new content. And just as I talked about before with PBNs, it's the same way. Google will lose the value if those aren't getting indexed. And if they're not getting indexed, probably not got backlinks. So you have to think about how do I manage that process at the same time. It's not easy. It's not. I personally have 25 that I use as part of my initial. I just published this content, and that's not easy. And Dory Friend and the team over at SEO Nitro, they're managing 3,000. So I can tell you that's not easy. So if you're going to do it, figure out like your risk tolerance and then what you want to do with those sites and everything. Greg Morrison, I mean, he just rebuilds them and then changes the homepage title tag and puts in inner cage content, and then he's done with it, and then he lets it die eventually, right? So there's that method, and then there's the other method where you kind of want to make your sites make money. So you got to figure out all those answers and questions and how you want to treat and develop this PBN. And I think that all goes back to risk tolerance.
I was gonna mention Dory, but then I stopped myself going, I don't know if it's okay to mention.
No, she markets that to her list all the time. So yeah, it's I think she's got like 3,000 domains in there, and you just go through, and even her and her team being on top of it, there's still things that happen to those sites you gotta watch and check for and learn from. So
to put it into context, she's learned since 2007 on how to do it properly.
Mm-hmm. Right. First network she lost because it got found out was $50,000 in domains. So, and then the new networks she's built since then have taken that painful lesson to heart. And so, I mean, she's got the whole system down and it's good. But again, if you want to do that for yourself, I would do like Greg Morrison teaches, frankly, Greg Morrison and Jerry West. Is, you get a page, you're going to need some PBNs, you go find 10 expired domains, you throw those back up there, build links, see where it goes, and then you just leave those alone, and rinse, repeat. And that gets expensive though, so you got to find a good host and all that stuff too. So,
All right, let's see. When making changes to an old page with a long ranking history, how to force Google to reset and reevaluate my page. Well, the first thing you need to be able to do is to diagnostically evaluate if Google has processed the new page. And I recommend you put a test keyword in the footer. It can even be in a display none span so people don't see it. And then when you can search for the test keyword and find it in search, you know that the latest version of the page has been processed on Google's end. The act of that test keyword being findable is the indicator. And so, that would be step one, is getting used to that, or maybe even systematizing that if your website is big enough. And then to force the reevaluate the page, oftentimes changing one of the hot zones is key. So if you rewrite the title, if you rewrite the meta description, rewrite the main heading, that's also playing with fire because you can do damage with that. But oftentimes those will do it. You could also trigger a Google dance, which is you change a large amount of the page and you will instantly regret it because you'll fall to position 90 for a while. And then after Google reevaluates your content, you usually come back. But depending upon the nature of the changes you did, that could be better or worse or the same. So it's kind of a crapshoot if you force a Google dance to get Google to reevaluate. But I don't think you need to do any of that. I think if what you're asking at its lowest level is how do I know if Google has processed it, then just a test keyword is all you need. Clint, any ideas?
You went in a different direction. I was going to be like, Google URL submit, Google API, send to indexers, just get it recrawled.
Yeah. I was assuming it was beyond that. And I always like Clint's advice of use multiple services. So in Cora, I'll remind Cora users, there's the indexer button. You can submit to 7 services for free. All right. A couple of months ago, you mentioned you removed one word from one of your pages and it went up in the ranking significantly. I think the word was SEMrush or something like that. Do you have any tips for finding or reducing your page's relevancy? That specific problem is extremely rare, so I've never seen other cases of it. But the only place you could diagnose it is in Google Search Console when you look at the queries. And so the page in question was the top SEO factors page. And I had tuned it to the 9s for the keyword top SEO factors because I wanted to be honest about what my page was about. And that's what I wanted to rank. So I'm trying to be transparent to both Google and searchers. And so I had several hundred mentions of top SEO factors, and I had 2 mentions of SEMrush. And what did Google do? They ranked me for nothing but SEMrush related keywords. That's all I would rank for it. It was so frustrating because I didn't want to poach keywords from SEMrush. And then when I
I'd have been all over that.
removed those 2 mentions of SEMrush, my page exploded for top SEO factors. And so that is diagnostically the story of what happened there. But the only way I know of you can diagnose that is to look at your queries report and Search Console. And if all of the things you get impressions and clicks for are off topic and not even remotely tuned for, then you kind of fall into that scenario where you remove the mentions and you get back into it. There is a more common relevancy issue where you topically drift, and we often see it with like small hometown style businesses where the electrician talks about his grandson's little league game. Lee's example here. Yeah. And as he talks about how amazing the little league game is, his page topically drifts from being a small town electrician to being about grandson's little league games. And so you need to be mindful of your entities because those form your topical relevance, and you need to keep your pages on topic. And another problem with that is when it's home pages, a lot of people mistakenly think that because it's so much easier to rank on a homepage that I should tune for all keywords on my homepage. Then you get to page 2 and 3 for dozens of awesome keywords, but when you go for the gold in any one, you train wreck dozens of others. And so you need to practice intentional SEO where you put those keywords on inner pages. And in doing that, you have the ability to maximize your amount of number 1 results. You can't maximize your amount of number 1 results if all the keywords are on one page. And so, yeah, you got to put all those types of things into balance. Any thoughts, Clint?
No, I think we're together.
All right. Let's see. All right. So Simon says we might want to read the paper on GPT-4 system card. Yeah, I'm behind on the research. It's just evolving so quickly.
It's just a document that talks about what their mitigation to get rid of undesirable content types inside of GPT-4 and some stuff that they did and their success and failures at accomplishing that.
Leave it to Clint to know the research. Why we like having them. If you had a 30-site PBN in the same niche as your e-com site, how would you use them to get the most value out of them? I would.
So there's another question in there too, because I reference your PHPs and how you use that to generate links to your products. So if you kind of tie those 2 questions together, you'll knock them both out, I think.
I'll let you take this one. You've got a good idea going.
Yeah, so Ted showed us or talked to us early days at SEO Fight Club about his days at ecom, and he created essentially a 25 domain PBN using PHP. And I'm assuming that he used RSS to fire off a signal to the PHP sites, and it would automatically build a website or links to each of those product pages. Hence me talking all the time about 25 referring domains and mentioning that stuff. I mean, he did it for ecom. I tested it with pretty much everything else, and it works like gangbusters. So you'd be dumb not to have that network built out.
The
The
only difference with what you just said was I didn't use RSS for ecom. I used the Google Merchant Center product feed, and that way your product team is taking things up and down off of the network of sites through that feed.
Yeah, see, you even went the up and down thing. I don't even mess with that down part. But again, it's a way, right? So he used the Merchant Center, he used a feed, and he had the domain. So if you wanted to recreate that 25, 30, 50 domains, depending on your market, I mean, adult, you're going to need at least 50, for example, or something really hard. So that in that creating that auto linking thing is really, like, for us normal people, if you think about Semantic Mastery's IFTTT rings, it's not unlike that. So if you had a 30 site PBN and you have Zapier and your money site has an RSS feed, every time you publish, you can get Zapier to send the extract to all your domains and build links off of that. Not the exact article. You don't want the first 100 words of the article. You want the extract, and that will do exactly the same thing. And you can use the domains you buy or follow the Semantic Mastery IFTTT ring thing. It's totally up to you.
And ChatGPT plugins is going to have a Zapier plugin, so you'll be able to rewrite and summarize as part of that chain.
Yeah. With a little bit of coding magic, you can have that rewritten for each of your 25, 30 domains if you wanted to. I would probably use 3.5 turbo because it's a little bit cheaper, but yeah. So that's how you would do that 25 referring domains, or how you skin that cat. Again, your market's going to tell you how many you need in the beginning. Some people, like Ted, he uses press releases to get his hit. I use a combination of my 25 network and SEO autopilot, high quality bookmarks, which is like Pinterest and Instagram and that kind of shit. You can use Semantic Mastery. All you're looking for is 25 unique referring domains to each page.
Excellent. Yeah. It's a great strategy. If you want to talk about it in more detail, just ping me on Skype. I'm not hard to find. It's just my name. So yeah, happy to share more details about what I did if you're interested in learning. Let's see. Next question I feel is for Lee, because I don't want to share Lee's secrets, but I feel it's a Lee question. Do you do anything different to optimize for Bing? Do you feel it's worthwhile?
Yes, it's worthwhile. No, I don't do a lot to optimize differently for Bing, especially, I mean, going back to where we started with their investment in Chat GPT and OpenAI stuff. I think that what Bing managed to do is very cleverly buy themselves a knowledge graph, a topical knowledge graph that they can incorporate into their own search without having to crawl the entire web like Google does. So no, generally speaking, just tune your pages the way you would for Google, and they should rank well. If you've done a good job, they should rank well in Bing as well.
Let's see. Next question. Do you fix the page level or domain level gap for referring domains first? I'll tell you what I do, but it's contrary to basically the entire world. I fix the referring domains for the inner pages. I view the home pages for the brand, and I try to SEO inner pages if at all possible. And all of the press release services out there are going to try to talk you into doing press releases for your homepage first. It's not harmful. It can lift all boats in many cases, but I'm usually trying to solve a problem for specific URL, specific keyword, and that's contrary to that idea, in my opinion. But with that in mind, there's more than one way to rank a page. What do you do, Clint?
Yeah, Google ranks pages, not websites. So I focus on the page. In regards to the press releases, I mean, if you're doing those, typically you can send it to 3 places. So why not send it to the page you're trying to rank, the home page, because why not? And then if it's for a client, then you can put links in there for your agency. This is sent to you by blah blah blah, right? So you don't have to stick to one page in those regards. But and that's a good practice if you're buying links or you're doing outreach or any of that madness too. So you kind of hit both of those at the same time.
What are your thoughts on location page duplicate content? I'm like, how do you do that? Because when I do location page content, the locations have different attractions, different landmarks, different. So it's like,
I think we're talking about like if you're doing, Plumber, Oklahoma City, Plumber, Tulsa, and essentially they're the same content with
local information, right?
No, not everyone's doing that on that page. Like I don't do that on that page. I'll use those for part of the silo. I create a geo silo. Whereas I think Lee, you teach adding a little bit, but also doing the geo silo. And then Ted, I've the same example.
I do it
as I know Terry Samuels, he adds it all on that page and puts it in tabs and all that madness.
I do the sidebar accordion in the sidebar, fun things to do nearby local landmarks. It's supplemental content. It's not main content, but
it makes for good, unique stuff. It's harder to do at mass scale though, because you got to go in there and research each one of those things and change the pages. And whereas what Lee was mentioning, just changing out the cities and stuff. I mean, that works. And the reason why it works is because the engineers at Google are not dumb. And they know that Kurt the plumber is going to probably offer the same services in every city that he works in. And they don't expect Kurt the plumber to write an entirely unique piece of content for each city. So that's why those templated pages, like you do, Kurt, or like I do, I kill it with templated pages, work so well. So you optimize it for the head term, plumbing, and then you do your Quoras and surfers or phrases or clear scopes for plumbing. And then you go back and you create essentially shortcodes for the cities and state inside of that content to make it unique enough to target that city or state for the keyword plumbing. And Google loves them. So go for it.
All right, here's a fiery one. Your competitor got a few hundred spam backlinks with exact match anchors, got to number 1 and survived the last 3 core updates. Sounds exactly like my playbook. What would you do to outrank them? Well, honestly, it's an arms race. So, the truth is Google is reducing your entire website to a score that's a high precision floating point number between 0 and 1. And the things you need to do move you closer to 1 and away from 0. So it's like, what can you do to your page to bump up your score? And there's a lot of different routes to doing that. The way you do it will be different than the way Yelp does it, will be different than the way that Clint does it. It's more than one way to rank a page. There will be tactics that those other players can do that you can't do, and that typically means you have to compensate for it in other ways. So you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to be flexible to making changes. The worst case scenario is when everything on the page is sacred and you're not allowed to change anything yet improve rankings. So hopefully you're not in that situation. Me, I would look at it, and if they did spammy backlinks, I would do something a bit better reputation. I would do press release backlinks because every business on earth does them, and they can be white hat as long as you make them white hat. And then oftentimes, if it's only 200, 300, one press release will get you about 500 referring domains. So it's usually cheaper, faster, less risk, safer, smaller numbers. I mean, why do the risky stuff if you got it beat on all fronts on something else? That's my thought. What do you think, Clint?
My clients or my competition's ranking with GSA or XRumor or whatever, and then I'm going to be opening up GSA or XRumor or whatever. Google said, "Hey, we don't care what the quality of the links are, as long as you've met this requirement." If hundreds of exact match anchors got them the number one, the first thing I would go do is go build hundreds of exact match anchors and see if I can get number two. But that's kind of how I roll, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are two ends of the spectrum. How do you safely black hat, and how do you black hat?
It's interesting. The question, uses the term spam backlinks as though, the question behind it is like, this is a bad thing. How do I beat them doing a bad thing? And I'm like, well, the question always is it a bad thing? I have sites that are pure spam in terms of content. They're lorem ipsum, they're gibberish, they're whatever. I have sites that have just pure spam backlinks, the GSAs and things like that you're never supposed to do. I have sites, now more recently with the scares around AI that are pure chat GPT copy paste websites out there. And for a long time now, as soon as Google announces a spam update, I open up my rank tracker and I look, and none of my sites have ever been hit, even the ones that I designed to say, all right, if they're ever going to catch bad links or bad content, this is it. This will be the first one to go, and they haven't gone. So I don't know what Google has done with their spam updates, but I haven't seen it, even with the stuff that has been built to be caught, so I can see when they actually do it, what tactics are no longer effective. So like Clint, if they've got 200, this sort of spammy link, XRumor links, if I could fire up XRumor, or I go buy XRumor links and, call it a day.
I'm ranking sites in the supplement niche and the rehab niche with GSA. I have a few of them that I just do it on purpose, where I go full retard on them, and they're still ranking awesome. So, I mean, I would probably just remove the thought concept idea of spam. I mean, there's blatant spam, right? But don't look at links whether it's good or if it's spam or not. Look at it as, did that result in a positive reaction or not?
And the thing that Google dislikes the most is when you mislead the searcher. So if you're selling affiliate casino offers and you're targeting how to train a puppy, you can expect misery on that.
Yep.
But if you're being honest about what you're offering, it seems like Google's giving a lot of those a pass.
Mm-hmm.
Seems. I don't know officially. All right. So how do you use Chat GPT to speed up adding keywords to close the gap given by Quora? It's really simple. I use it for supplemental content. I think it's a big rookie mistake to always rush into SEO tuning the main content, and oftentimes it isn't needed, and you can often do the bigger numbers really quickly with supplemental content widgets on the page. I made an almost 20-year career in e-com out of ranking pages from the footer. You can totally rank pages from sidebars and footer. Look at supplemental content first, because I think SEO gets super easy when you keep your CRO content and your SEO content in their own lanes. It's only when you're like, oh, I got to put all the words in my main article when stuff starts getting stupid. Thoughts on that, guys?
I think you nailed it.
Or, I mean, it gives you a list. I wouldn't even use ChatGPT. It just tells you add this variation and I since taking Lee's course and just kind of getting an insight into hidden content a little bit more, I mean, he didn't invent it, but he came up with a cool way to leverage it. And now I just use the core report. It tells you the list that make it, put it all in the hidden content, and did it move the needle or not? If it moved the needle, to make the decision, do I go back and put it in there legitly, or I just keep the hidden div stuff in there? So you don't even need ChatGPT to implement that stuff.
Let's see, when it comes to link building to a new website, do you need to wait for the target page to receive some traffic? No, I've had great luck just buying the domain, issuing the press release, then going and setting up hosting. So no, I don't think there's a order of operations requirement. I will tell you that whenever you deal with off page, it takes a month. So expect it to take a month.
Yep. And it's part of promotion, right? You can write outstanding content, but if no one can see it, then you're not going to get backlinks. But how are they going to see it? They won't see it unless they know it's there. So in the way the internet works, in order to tell someone that your new thing is there, you have to build backlinks to it as part of your promotion of that content.
Simon White says clients will never wait 8 weeks. And sadly for all of us, it's up to Google. So, after a Google update, you need to triage SEO. Yeah, you do. Let's see. Oh, I think I skipped one. I know this is current core update was only announced, ended today, and core diff would be early to do. Haven't done an analysis. I only have one page that was affected, and I'm not entirely sure why yet. So yeah, I think an analysis needs to be done, but you're right, it probably is a bit early. All right, if PBN sites use the same WordPress theme, will Google discover it? Well, if it's the most popular WordPress theme on the web, I'd say it's pretty good camouflage.
It's the question is really footprints, right? And I hide in plain sight. So if you create, like, all of my PBNs all look the same. They're all essentially core generated reports. So you look at them and they're all similar, right? In regards to WordPress theme, it would be the same thing. If you're using the same theme, the same look, and a narc SEO finds your network somehow, they're going to report you. Google could give two shits less about your 30 domains, but a narc SEO will find that stuff out. So if you're going to scale and build a big PBN, eventually you're going to just use the same themes over and over again. So you have to hide those from the narc SEOs. And that's why you come to SEO spring training and you learn from Ted how to do stealth SEO, and that'll benefit you well inside of creating a PBN.
And if you're going to do that, I recommend you do it quickly. They might already be sold out of in-person tickets. So if you're on the fence, I mean, it's probably less chance if it's not already closed. All right. And let's see, couple related here. We got a question about GPT comments on product pages, and a question, how concerned are you about publishing information that may have hallucinated facts in it? I'm not super worried about it, but if you're in a regulated space, I would be super worried about it. So if you're doing content on lawyers' websites, if you're doing content on accountants' websites, if you're doing content on doctors' websites, you need to be proofreading that stuff, because if you say the wrong thing, you can affect their licensing.
What would be the day the SEO that is using regenerated response inside of law sites and I've seen it. And the lawyer figures that shit out, you're toast. So legal, health, anything, your money, your life, you need to be reading it.
But on my own website, I don't care because I'm not in a regulated space, and if my facts are wrong, I'm just another idiot on the web. All right, so let's see. 6 weeks until 200. Yeah, I have to double check the numbers. Usually when I go back, I find I skip a few and we have to do some makeup shows to get to an honest 200. So that's plus or minus a fairly likely margin of error.
Are you saying next week we could have episode 47? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You remember when we did 100 and I had to do 7 episodes to make it honest. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 200's a cool milestone. We'll have to figure out something fun to do. Let's see. What's the best image size to rank in Google image search? I have no idea. I'm not an image SEO. Lee?
This big by this big.
Yeah.
There's no data on that I'm aware of. I'm not sure that it matters.
The only one is if you're trying for discover, and let me find the stupid measurement for you. Bill Hartzer shared it. There's a specific images. It's got to be bigger than 1200 pixels, I think he said, to get into Google Discover. Yeah. Larger than most sites could qualify, but they never use an image on the page larger than 1200 pixels wide. So if you're trying to get Google Discover, give that a shot. The rest of it, I don't think it matters.
So there you go. And we'll wrap it there. We're 23 over, but wanted to make an effort on the questions. So, last chance on SEO spring training if it's not already too late. So if you're on the fence about it, it's time to hurry. It's rush time. So you can just Google SEO spring training to learn about it. Any announcements, Clint, for SEO Intel?
I'm checking on it. Hold on. Looks like they got a couple tickets left. The regular tickets, so the VIP stuff's also that. SEO Intel, no, nothing new. Right now we're plugging along good. The Discord group's kind of getting some life to it, which is awesome. Gotta promote that some more. But other than that, same old.
All right, and don't know yet if they're gonna do streaming or recordings at all. There's, I'd say, a 50% chance they won't, because historically the bulk of the speakers like to keep their secrets a little bit secret. I think
it's less than that.
Yeah,
because talking to him, the money it takes to do all that is significant, and he barely breaks even on the conference anyway. If you add that expense, then selling all his recordings, and then I know that there's a lot of speakers that don't want to give out their best stuff on recordings. So,
but I did as much as I could do. I offered to make my presentation part of the streaming, part of the recorded if they do it, because I know a lot of people really want to attend and can't. But if it doesn't work out, I'm just sorry it didn't work out. But it is what it is.
It'd be a good presentation for our 200th episode.
I don't know that I'd want to go on that. I don't know that you want to go on that public.
It would definitely boost subscribers.
And the other problem The other problem is I have these conferences that I kind of loosely promise I'll talk about the topic once, and then I'm gonna make an effort to not talk about it again. And this is one of those topics where typically nobody in our industry shares it.
Yeah.
And so,
they get chastised if they do. So
yeah, so it's a big no-no for me to even be talking about it. So, it's probably gonna die after this event. And
Yeah.
and it isn't something that is so hard that you can't figure it out on your own. It's just that I have my really simple, elegant TED way of doing it. And there's literally a million other ways to do stealth SEO.
Did you say the TED way is simple and elegant?
Yes,
In this
case. In this case.
Well, I'm gonna go with some asterisks on this one. Simple and elegant,
Yeah, I'll let Cora style. Simple and elegant.
So, the really cool thing about something like spring training, if you forget the conference, just the ability to hang out with other top level SEOs at the bar, like the ability to sit with Clint Butler and hear what he really thinks, not in a restrained environment like this one, is yes, pretty cool.
I'm totally restrained on YouTube.
Totally restrained. But yeah, the ability to do that and to talk, and share ideas and stuff like that, to network in that regard is just, it's better than the cost of the conference, regardless of who's speaking. And I'm not diminishing the speakers or anything else, but there are conferences that I will go to, not based on the speakers, but based on who else is going.
Yeah, I think this year's speakers it was always a good conference. I've been going to it since they started it. And it's always a good conference, but this year the speaker list is pretty on point. I think I'm surprised that I know why he limited the amount of people, but I'm surprised that it's not a bigger conference by now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have expected him to upscale it. But maybe he's just taking safe steps on that because it's so risky.
Well, yeah, COVID got him. I mean, they before COVID hit that year, he had spring training booked and planned, $50,000 deposit on the hotel, and even after everything and saying hey, it's canceled and etc. It took him months to get that 50,000 back. I mean, that happens to you once, you get pretty shell shocked. So I get it. To me, I think it would need less promotion than the amount of level that he's doing, because it should be. I mean, that's the perception of that conference should be up there, in my opinion, like the Chiang Mai. You know what I mean? So that's what I think.
Yeah, and our little pocket of the SEO industry kind of needs its own event.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the other events, they don't let us in. And so, yeah, we need to start doing our own. So,
did you notice, I don't know if you ever did this, and this is kind of on topic, but the SEO events, the majority of them are enterprise level, but they also, those enterprise level events happen more so overseas than they do in the US.
Well, it's a way of filtering out tire kickers. You got to be the type of person who wants to go to a tropical destination as part of.
No, they're doing them in like Europe, like France and England and all those. If you look at the list, someone put together the list for 2023, early 24, and most of those they're all in Europe. There's probably 6 Chiang Mai level conferences that generate a really good community in the digital marketing space in the United States. So it's definitely an opening there.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. If I have an opportunity to go to 2 conferences or a conference of my choices between going to Scottsdale, Arizona and Chiang Mai, and I've got a budget because my company's going to pay for me to go there. If I'm enterprise, I'm going overseas just because That's where it is. And, if I'm running a conference, if I know I can attract big companies to it by putting it in a nice destination, I'll do it. Because, the major agencies, the major companies with the big in-house SEO teams will pay, for their people to go learn.
You mean the executive marketer from Disney won't keynote at a conference in Jersey?
Probably
I mean,
not.
Jersey, yeah, but I don't think he'd be in some parts of Texas. He's definitely not coming to Arizona.
All right, guys. Well, we will wrap it there. So be sure to check out SEO Spring Training. Be sure to check out Tested SEO Training. Be sure to check out SEO Intel. That's Clint's group. Be sure to come back next week fully loaded with a lot of questions. So we will see you then.